MPs expressed concern over the increase in military coups and the surge in political instability in the sub-region, warning Ghana is at risk if Parliament fails to show leadership.
Not be justified under any circumstance. The members of Parliament will reduce arguments, intellectual arguments, to fisticuffs. And if we continuously engage in that, we are preparing the grounds for the unfortunate.
We'll hear from a former chief of staff of Ecowas Commission who is charging Ghana to take control of its security. Also, how individuals involved in serious and organized crime spent millions of dollars financing the NDC and the NPP presidential campaigns.
We identified 9 financiers of candidates and political parties funding to them. And these financiers were engaged in illegal mining, galamsey.
We have details of a CDD report plus revelations on how it cost about $100 million to run a presidential campaign and 4 million cedis for parliamentary primaries. Also on our Clean Ghana campaign, the Accra Metropolitan Assembly arrests a toilet facility operator at Circle in the Greater Accra region.
We are much as possible trying our best to ensure that we calm down Korela in the city. We are also trying as much as possible to promote Korela. So because of that, he is under arrest. So we are taking him away. And he will be going to court tomorrow.
This is Joy News Prime. We are live on DSTV, channel 421, GoTV at 144. This is your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Stay tuned in for details. Hello again, thanks for choosing us. I'm Ernest Menu. Members of Parliament have expressed concern over the increase in military coup and the surge in political instability in the sub-region, warning Ghana is at risk if Parliament fails to show leadership. The latest coup attempt in Guinea-Bissau is the 4th in the Sahel region in less than 18 months. Earlier, there were coups in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Chad. The Guinean President Umaru Sissoco Embalalo said coup was fauled even though several lives were lost, adding he is still committed to the fight against corruption.
I was in the middle of the Council of Ministers with all the members, including the Prime Minister, and we were attacked with very heavy weaponry for 5 hours. But now everything is under control. When I was elected president, I promised to fight 2 things: corruption and drug trafficking. And this is also linked to that.
The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the coup attempt is totally unacceptable. He's urging the military to return to barracks.
Don't know yet the details of what's happening. It is for us clear that coups are totally unacceptable. We are seeing a terrible multiplication of coups, and our strong appeal is for soldiers to go back to the barracks and for the constitutional order to be fully in place in the democratic context of today's Guinea-Bissau.
Ecowas has already condemned the action, and heads of member states will gather in Accra tomorrow for a meeting on the increasing number of cases in the sub-region. Ahead of that meeting, Ghana's parliament has been discussing the issue. Yes, the majority chief whip, Frank Anodompre, urging his colleagues to guard against conduct that seek to undermine the country's democracy.
We are all professing various councils to the continent. But we must also look within. Speaker, it cannot be justified under any circumstance that members of Parliament will reduce arguments, intellectual arguments, to fisticuffs. And you have people who are targeting the seat of the Speaker. It cannot be the case. And if we continuously engage in that, we are preparing the grounds for the unfortunate. Speaker, so it's high time we also reflect. This Parliament, and growing up as a young student leader, I have never witnessed MPs going after the Speaker's seat. I have never seen that. Both sides, we need to reflect. The ruling class must reflect, and we are part of the ruling class. You cannot at one time or at one hand condemn coup d'etat, and at another hand surreptitiously and physically trying to attack the Speaker of Parliament. For me, that is a form of a coup d'etat. Anybody who engage in fisticuffs in Parliament here is fueling and facilitating coup d'etat and must be condemned in no uncertain terms. Speaker, quite recently we were...
Well, another prayer was contributing to a statement read by the Northern MP Samuel Okujeto-Ablakwa, lamenting about the recent insurgence of coup in the sub-region.
I am convinced coups are not a panacea to Africa's hydra-headed and intractable socio-economic challenges. That said, we must all concede that the promised democratic dividend has remained largely elusive on the African continent. The only real solution to the coup epidemic, as the UN Secretary General calls it, cannot be AU and Ecowas sanctions. African leaders need an urgent, bold, and robust Marshall Plan to address regional insecurity, acute unemployment, lack of opportunities for the youth, marginalization, corruption, nepotism, proliferation of arms, insurgencies, dictatorships, economic mismanagement, foreign exploitation, and clueless leadership. Africa's version of democracy, which has been a sham at best in many jurisdictions, and has rather produced a political and economic elite beholden to nepotism, cronyism, corruption, opulence, and high-handedness, often laced with blatant disregard for the rule of law, cannot be kept in place. Mr. Speaker, it is time for the African Union and other sub-regional bodies such as Ecowas to institute an independent monitoring and evaluation system that assesses the democratic health, stability, and economic well-being of member states for frank peer review as a proactive measure to forestall more coups. This independent assessment must be conducted regularly by credible African CSOs or foundations in a transparent and scientific manner. Their findings must be made public to both enrich the African democratic discourse and also assure citizens that their leaders are paying attention to what really matters to them.
Well, other MPs in the chamber contributed to the statement.
Clearly, one key factor that we must not discount in all this is leadership. Democracy is supposed to be an efficient mechanism for producing the best leadership for our people. But it seems democracy is failing in several respects in Africa in helping us elect the best leadership. We end up having clueless leaders, as the maker of the statement has made. We end up having leaders that are greedy, selfish, incompetent, and do not use the democratic machinery to solve the problems of the people. When democracy does not solve the problems of the people, the social and economic and security problems of the people, people will be discontented and they will hail any undermining of democracy. And that is why I am not surprised that in all the countries that the military coups have occurred, the population has come out to hail and applaud the military overthrows. It is because the people have been living with governments that are clueless, incompetent, are not solving their problem, and all they see is that the members of government or the ruling elite only care about themselves, their welfare, the welfare of their families, and they are feeding fat on the poverty of the people.
With the greatest of respect, that I believe it is the sanity of permitting democratic governments to perform, for better or for worse. For a long stretch of time, that has accounted for the kind of economic development that we've seen with, for instance, America and the United Kingdom. But where the constitutional journey is punctuated by coup d'etats, Honourable Speaker, you can see that somebody believes he's a savior. And you see the masses sometimes very excited that a government has been booted out. Mr. Speaker, came to a point where we all decided, including Ghana, that democracy is the way of life. Democracy should be what we should practice, where decisions are taken inclusively, where major decisions are made with major stakeholders and every stakeholder in the country. Grassroots democracy became the choice of word. And at the end of the day, a lot of African countries embrace democracy.
Now, some experts have predicted more of such coups if the appropriate measures are not put in place. Former Chief of Staff of Ecowas Commission, Ambassador William Awenado Kanjire, tells Joy News it is time to take our human security more seriously.
We watched the video of our president in his opening remarks at the last Ecowas summit. He did indicate that no one is immune. But of course, depending on the trajectory of your country, you are less immune than others. For me, what is the key lesson here is that governance and the quality of governance is very key in determining whether we are going to have more insecurity or less insecurity. We take security too much for granted. So we need to unpack security, and especially we need to unpack human security in order to inform the kind of governance and security governance that we will practice. Intelligence, if you look at the nature of our religiosity in Ghana and the rest of Africa, I think it's the manifestation or the practice is more subversive to our development than development enhancing. We must develop the mind as well. The educational content and pedagogy, which comes from the colonial experience that we are still holding on to, so hard, that it baffles me, that also needs to be addressed right from childhood, including peace education, including educating the children on human rights, basic human rights. If you look at some of the countries that are making it, like the Scandinavian, even the US, right from early stages, the children are exposed to peace education, human rights, including the respect of the national flag, the national anthem, and things like that. There is an entry point for non-state actors in terms of engaging with the state side, which does well, but also has slippages. And like she said, you need to cover it. The CSO side also has a lot of contribution that it's been making and continues to make, but it also has slippages. And together, let's enhance the strengths and minimize the weaknesses. So my advice is use the member state level as an entry point first, not the regional. The Ecowas has a framework which compels member states to create national committees for integration, which is supposed to be state institutions and non-state. It is clearly spelled out. Media, heads of media houses are supposed to be part of it, among other CSOs, private sector. If you check the 15 member states, even if it is created, it is not functional. So are you surprised that we are in this state of lack of information, very little implementation?
Let's do more on this story. Let's go to Zoom now. Emmanuel Bombande is a conflict resolution expert and a senior UN mediation officer, also former Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister. Thank you, sir, for joining us. A few days ago, we hosted you, and the conversation was about Burkina Faso. Today, we are talking about Guinea. Is there any merit in the suspicion that there are individuals or a group of people instigating these takeovers because of the serial nature of it?
Well, first of all, we have to appreciate that contagion is a factor in which some military people see what is happening to be the right time, and that the environment is also appropriate, because if they take over, then it simply joins the narrative rather than being treated separately on its own. We cannot discard that. But I will quickly add that each country is different with its own specific and peculiar nature of how we understand and deal with these issues. For example, one of the members of parliament talked about a generalization of corrupt leaders. You see, in the midst of what is happening, let me say very clearly that the president of Burkina Faso, Roch Christian Makabori, is an example of a president who was delivering on good governance, but failed if you look at it in terms of protecting the civilian population in terms of security.
Okay.
If you listen to the president of Guinea-Bissau, Umbalo, and people know him for that, he's fighting corruption and he's fighting the use of the trade in narcotics. That has always brought Guinea-Bissau to its knees. So we cannot assume that elected leaders as we have them are not delivering on good leadership, though that is not general. I think what is important is that in every situation, ask yourself, what is the root cause? What is the underlying issue? If you go back to the debate in parliament, if you don't want fisticuffs in parliament, ask yourself, how do we prevent that? If you don't deal with the root causes, tomorrow there will be fighting in parliament. Let's not pretend. So what you do is, decency requires that you understand the underlying causes, respect rules and regulations, and deal with it. And I think the others that your guests have been adding on all come to add on. And I would conclude on this remark by simply saying, all the things that Ambassador Kanyigri mentioned, all the things that some of the members of parliament said, none of them is achievable without political will. Take Ghana. Where is the political will to even decentralize? We cannot agree to elect our district chief executives. So in the same way, the protocols are clear. The Ecowas instruments are clear, but there is no political will to internalize them and domesticate them at national levels. And so we keep on talking only when the crisis emerges, but we don't have the capacity to prevent.
We'll come back to ECOWAS shortly, but you mentioned Parliament. The MPs have expressed concern tonight about how their own actions could undermine the country's democracy. Is it far-fetched to say that these exchanges could create grounds for some radicality?
The nature of our parliament and the nature of democracy, which allows frank and open debate in our parliament, also comes along with how you raise issues in such a way that the issues that you raise, you are tough on the issues. And nobody should ask that our parliamentarians should not be tough on the issues. You are tough on the issues, but then you are soft on the people. In other words, you understand that it is human beings who are relating with one another in the debate. So the rules and regulations allow for you to have respect for one another in the humanity of one another, see yourselves as belonging to the same country, but raise the issues and be tough on the issues with the respect for one another. If you go around and you communicate in a way that you cannot carry the people along to support you, or the type of communication is to mislead and to represent, then you are not able to manage how you handle the issue. And that is when you begin to see this semblance of violence. And that is why we must always ask ourselves, what is the underlying root causes? And how do we ensure that we are tackling those root causes to prevent the violence?
Now, just before you go, Mr. Bombande, let's talk about ECOWAS. Tomorrow there's a meeting to discuss these growing issues in the sub-region. What do you expect?
Yeah, so first of all, let me begin by saying the ECOWAS institution is functioning. And however the challenges we've come into at the present time, we must appreciate that we have a regional organization that is working. Now, interestingly, 2 decades ago, when we were putting these protocols and treaties in place, it was precisely because we always knew that when we come across this type of challenges, we are prepared to deal with them. Can you imagine if we do not have these instruments? We will be like groping ourselves in the dark and trying to find our way out. But those instruments allow us to see a clear way forward. And what is that? To be brief, number one, we want to restore constitutional order in the countries where the coup d'etats have happened. Mali, Guinea, and Burkina Faso. We are somewhat relieved that the coup did not succeed in Guinea-Bissau, but it's good that the president is instituting a commission of inquiry so that they can study it and make sure there's no repetition. Now, when we are able to do that, two, we must have the political will to emphasize prevention. And the political will comes to the good governance. And I don't need to repeat all the things that have been said. Yeah. But good governance is something that happens daily. It's the institutions of the state functioning, the transparency with which they function, holding one another accountable. And respecting that holding one another accountable does not mean I'm against you if I raise issues against you. It is the nature of democracy. Once we do that, let's bring those instruments to be applicable on the ground and to function effectively. What does that mean? Without going a bit too long on this, the political will, as I said, that the revision of the treaties, no president should be able to stay in office more than 2 terms. And that when a sitting president who has been elected democratically is trying to change the constitution, just as we are trying to deal with the military coup d'etat, we must also hold that president accountable. And whilst we do that, respect for our constitutions, constitutionalism, and ensure that the institutions of the state function to the satisfaction of everybody. When we do that, one thing we do is that the inequalities that are widening, when people feel they are being left behind, those gaps begin to close. Okay. And when those gaps begin to close, peace would be permanent. In addition to, of course, promoting our human security through the Ecowas conflict prevention framework. And I end on saying that the slogan for the Sustainable Development Goals is very simple. That no one will be left behind. If we leave people behind, there will be violence. So I'm happy that there is a certain tiny minority in Ghana making it, having private jets, having a private jet terminal. Let those who have it, but the resources must be distributed for everybody to be included so that there is equity. Otherwise, you fly in your private jet and you cannot come back to land.
Mr. Bombande, it's always a pleasure to have you discuss these sub-regional issues with us. We are grateful for your time. He's a senior UN mediation officer and a former deputy Foreign Affairs Minister. Tomorrow, the meeting happens here in Accra. We'll bring you details here on Joy News. Now, the Finance Minister, Kenneth Ofori-Atta, says the NDC's opposition to the e-levy is misplaced and has been questioning their resistance to the 1.75% tax, which government says will accrue some 6.9 billion cedis to the state. The NDC minority in Parliament have been at the forefront of the opposition to the tax measure, with a section of Ghanaians also kicking against it. As part of government's strategy to rally support for the policy, it held a second town hall in the Western region where Kenneth Ofori-Atta and other government officials have been speaking.
So I think the NDC stance about not having e-levy may be misplaced, but it's not because they are not patriotic. But when we do the numbers, you realize that really we are at a point in our nation's history where we need to do things differently, to be able to cross the issues that are confronting us with regards to youth employment, which affects all of us, and really goes to the dignity of our people who are home, the issue of our debt, so that we can start mobilizing our own resources. But to be able to do that is to ensure that all of us contribute. I mean, the argument could be killed immediately if you say that right now, as Madam Central Region mentioned, that we have only 2.4 million people contributing taxes for the whole nation of 30.8 million. Now that can't be right, we know that. So even for this year's budget, for example, and this is for Keck to tell his people, that if there are 21 million mobile money subscribers, so you begin to ask, what the resistance is.
Now, according to the finance minister, the value of mobile money and other electronic transactions keep going up exponentially, and it's necessary for government to get its fair share of the revenue. He's daring the NDC to provide alternatives.
And then you ask us why we are bringing that. And you see that, the world is changing. It's changing tremendously. Where therefore e-commerce, and virtual business is now becoming the order of the day. So, for example, we had 78 billion CDs of transfers in 2016. In 2021, the year we've just left, it was 953 billion, meaning it's going to go to the trillions. And you are beginning to see how the economy is shifting. So in the same way in which we abolish certain nuisance taxes because they were not relevant and we needed people to be energized. Also the realization that the economy is shifting. And if it is shifting, then when do we get a head start at it to begin to understand that business and also therefore to be able to raise the revenue required, because you can see 78 billion moving to 953 billion and you can see the trillions coming. And the opportunity therefore with digitalization to also then move to all of us being a part of it, and this sense that, this is pernicious, etc., you then ask your opposition people exactly where we are going to get this type of resources, in an economy that is growing, that is getting modern, that certain things must be needed so that the dignity of all of us is enhanced.
Speaking at the town hall, Deputy Minister for Energy Andrew Ejapamesa ruled out government seeking IMF support. Some economists have asked government to go to the IMF, but Ejapamesa says the conditionalities at the IMF are too stringent.
Ghana no kan ko nimpuntu ogine nine nisem nti say na ye pen money ni ya obi bakada o na onko IMF well ebotum akwa IMF now going to the IMF no jono the easiest option now available na either for phone na ring IMF for the one brother no support na yentumi yeah but IMF yakọ solutions I wasn't made na yenim. But catch out there, cut public sector expenditure, social investments, reduce, public sector wage bill, reduce it, and increase revenue. Or your bossa debt no able to account. And see if you know all this, now one kasa able to initiate policy internally to ensure that enco IMF but able raise revenue in-house. And for us doing that, to make sure that revenue be introduced and our measure be introduced, able take care of the vulnerable. Now, and one who uncle one now a way to provide social support for the good people of this country.
Ejapamesa also argued that the e-levy is very necessary due to the precarious nature of government finances. He cited the effect of the banking sector crisis as reason government cannot keep borrowing.
Minister of Information Kano, Century Chia Waha Yabri, Titia, of them the Aina in Masamorokodo, revenue measure abandoned through the Minister of Finance, announced in the 2022 budget statement. What is in e-levy? There's some misinformation, some propaganda, some political twist. No engage citizenry, no explain the policy nature one, and sana we implement. But this time around, particularly on the minority side, they took a certain position. In the first place, was it one approve policy in crap no? Okotubori say ya approve budget, ya approve estimates, ya pass appropriation. the enabling legislation, Obama Finance Minister, work out the way to raise revenue. Now I expend them expenditure items of Parliament to approve. It was one approve. It's not being here, the Finance Minister under the direction of Cabinet. Obaba Pro, now looking for myself as Member of Parliament for Sekuni, minim Sekuni for your needs, minim Western region for your development needs. Any na ya pekwan, yen Sekuni market, yen pretending the energy, yen roads, yen schools. Expansion. No one can win na.
Let's go to the phone lines and speak to Deputy Ranking Member on the Finance Committee of Parliament, Honorable Isaac Adonko. Mr. Adonko, the Finance Minister says your opposition to the e-levy is misplaced. How do you respond to this?
Well, I think the Finance Minister is very confused, and I can forgive him. This is a minister who has run this country and the economy into a mess, into a ditch. This is a man who was not fit for purpose as a finance minister, but somehow he became a finance minister without the capacity to deal with the complexities of managing the economy of the country. Running a business is completely different from running an economy, and he's demonstrated over the years that he simply does not even understand the complexities of managing this economy. Mr.
Adonko, that is strange because, but for COVID, I think that we're doing pretty well. The figures started declining when we entered COVID and when the borrowing started. And so it's pretty curious that you say that he failed at managing the economy.
I wish you had pointed the specific figures that were looking good. Before COVID, the country was spending 91% of tax revenues to service public debt. Is that what you said was looking good? Before COVID, we had a situation where the economy was struggling to pay compensation and pay interest costs and still leave something to pay for statutory funds, such as common fund, national health insurance, and all of that. Before COVID, we had an economy that was doing a deficit of 7.7% as they reported to IMF when they needed to borrow. Before COVID, we were doing a negative primary balance of about 4% of GDP, which technically meant that we were borrowing to finance our interest costs. Before COVID, we had an economy that was struggling to provide relief to very basic needs of our country. Before COVID, we had an economy that was struggling to meet the same level of expenditure on infrastructure in terms of capex expenditure to GDP way back in 2016, almost 3 years after inheriting government. Which are the numbers you are referring to? Before COVID, we had a situation where investors were beginning to lose faith in our economy. So COVID only came to rescue them because they thought that they could now use COVID to basically cloud the judgment of Ghanaians on the mismanagement of the economy. But let me ask you a very basic question. Take a closer look at our neighbors, Benin, Togo, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso. None of them did above 6% of deficit, even under COVID. But under COVID, we did double digit of 15% deficit. As we speak today, in the 2020 year, none of those countries that I have mentioned to you did beyond 5% of deficit. We did a double digit of 12.1%. So it is not about COVID. It's about a group of people who have actually launched an attack on the public purse for purposes known to them. And we have come to a point where they've messed the economy. The economy is in doldrums, and the economy is struggling to survive.
And is that why you are calling? Is that why you are calling for the dismissal of the finance minister? Would that be the solution?
The finance minister never. I'm saying he is not even fit for that purpose, and it was a big mistake if not informed by nepotism and the president wanting to give the public purse to his own nephew and cousins. I cannot see how any serious country would put Ken Ofori-Atta in there as the finance minister.
Mr. Adonko, is it safe? Yes, is it safe, I beg your pardon, just briefly, is it safe to say that you still have not reached a compromise on this e-levy consultation that the finance minister isn't backing on?
What is the compromise? Listen, the e-levy bill is in Parliament. Is that not it?
That is so.
When a bill comes to Parliament, is it still in the hands of the executive? So you don't have a bill. Last Friday, when you attempted to deal with e-levy, you did not bring a new bill to withdraw the old bill. You still wanted to pursue the old bill. So you are going around doing town hall to discuss what bill, the bill that is outside of your hands, and it is not the property of Parliament. How can you be consulting on behalf of Parliament? Parliament should be the one consulting and engaging and picking memoranda from the people of Ghana to inform the improvement of the law, because that bill is outside of the hands of government. So I say this government is completely confused. You brought a budget on the 17th of November 2021. It was clear from day one that your major policy, which is the electronic levy, was going to be resisted, and we made it clear we didn't like it. It's been 2 months. We are just 10 days away from 3 months, and you are roaming around the streets of Takoradi saying that you are consulting. On what? 3 months? You never knew that this was a major policy that you needed to implement and to get it through? In any case, why are you saying that the minority is resisting it? We have 137 members. They have 138 members. The people of Ghana gave more powers to MPP in Parliament than they gave to the NDC. How come they are struggling to get the commitment of their members to push a government policy?
Oh, but Mr. Adongo, we know the dynamics there. The unavailability of the speaker changes all of that, and we've seen that play out.
The speaker, the day when they started yobbing everywhere that they will pass it, the very day we came. The speaker was here on the first day that we resumed. He sat through to Friday. What prevented them from coming to do the business of government? Well, and at the moment, the most important business of government is e-policy, e-levy.
Well, Mr. Adongo, we'll leave it here for now. I'm grateful that you could join us. We'll see what happens after the consultations that is going around the country, led by the Information Ministry and the Finance Ministry. But let's do some sanitation issues. Now, the Accra Metropolitan Assembly has arrested a toilet facility operator at Circle in the Greater Accra region. AMA Director of Public Health, Florence Kuchi, explains to the Joy Clean Ghana campaign team the operator, Alexander Ban, was picked up because he was channeling the waste from the facility into a public drainage system and not through a septic tank.
He has a public toilet without a septic tank. The toilet is direct into the drain. And if you are shaking your head, I'll go and show you the raw excreta over there. That when they flush, it passes through the drain. And you are doing this at this 21st century, in the middle of a town, in the middle of the city. And you are having a public toilet directly through into the drain. And when it rains, what are you doing? As we are much as possible trying our best to ensure that we calm down cholera in the city, we are also trying as much as possible to promote cholera. So because of that, he is under arrest. So we are taking him away. And he will be going to court tomorrow. Please, yes, please. No, please take him out.
Here on Joy News Prime with me, Ernest Tumenu, how individuals involved in serious and organized crime spent millions of dollars financing the NDC and the NPP presidential campaigns.
We identified 9 financiers of candidates and political parties funding to them. And these financiers were engaged in illegal mining, galamsey.
Hello there, it's time for business. I'm Charles Ayetip. The electronic transaction levy is expected to strengthen the country's revenue going forward, but there is uncertainty regarding its performance. That's the view of the Ghana Market Review and Outlook reports by Data Bank Research. Charles Nixon-Yabua looks through the report and has more in this story.
The report said the uncertainty surrounding parliamentary approval and potential behavioral changes in the use of the digital payment system pose a risk to the expected yield. The projected revenue from the e-levy is 6.96 billion cedis, representing 46% of the new revenue expectation of 15 billion cedis. Against this backdrop, Data Bank Research said the extra revenue expectation and the total revenue target of 100.5 billion cedis are quite ambitious. Therefore, there is a risk of budget underperformance in 2022. However, it said stricter enforcement of the Ghana Integrated Financial Management Information System could strengthen the expenditure controls and support budget performance. It forecast an overall budget deficit, including bailout costs, to range between 8.2 and 9.2% in relation to the size of the economy. It added that given the steep climb in the debt to GDP ratio and the debt service to revenue ratio, a faster compression in the budget deficit is inevitable.
Real Estate Developers Association has flagged the current economic conditions, warning about the impact on the cost of housing. Executive Secretary Samuel Megaibo has been letting us understand where things could go when it comes to renting and sale of houses in this interaction with me earlier on the marketplace.
Materials like iron rod, cement, and most of the major materials that we import, especially that we import, because of the freight charges and lack of it, scarcity of it, most of us are paying a lot more for the building materials than we used to pay for since COVID came in. So already we are feeling it, and I can tell you, iron rods, for example, went up for over 40-something% as at early last year, and we haven't seen any adjustment or any effect of anything that is going to bring the cost down at the moment. We have had stakeholder engagement. We have met government officials to the point of meeting parliamentarians to discuss how best this can be done down as we speak. Depending on what the effects are. So, for example, material constitutes a percentage of the price builder for every developer. So the effect of that will be calculated based on that. And all the others that we know, it will have some impact. And so every developer is going to look at the various price build-up items and then see where the cost increments are and do the corresponding adjustment to it.
That'll be it for business. We have sports coming up. Do stay with us.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on the Joy News Prime with me, Oriku Wampofo. The Confederations of African Football has turned down Ghana's request to play their 2022 World Cup qualifier playoff at the Baba Yara Sports Stadium. The Ghana Football Association was informed by the National Sports Authority last month to consider playing the game away from the Cape Coast Stadium due to the upcoming Independence Day celebration on March 6th. Now, the Baba Yara Sports Stadium was considered for the first leg of the playoff, which takes place next month, but CAF has rejected Ghana's request to play in Kumasi. Here's the full statement from CAF. So it remains to be seen whether the match would still take place at the Cape Coast Stadium or the Ghana Football Association have to explore other venues in Africa. But we'll keep you up to date in terms of which stadium Ghana would use when they face Nigeria in the World Cup playoff next month. Executive Council member of the Ghana Football Association, Dr. Tony Obin, has thrown more light on why the country's football governing body prefers Dortmund trainer Scout Otto Addo as the next Black Stars head coach. Now, government is keen to hand Chris Hughton the coaching role to replace Milovan Rajovac. Dr. Obin says they cannot find a government over the choice of coach, but Otto Addo is the best fit for the job in the current circumstance.
My position is that the Black Stars need a coach. Whether the coach is from Amsterdam, is from Afghanistan, and if he's the best coach or a very good coach, whether it's white, blue, black, whatever, it should be good for Ghana.
Okay.
So what we're looking for is a coach. If it turns out that that coach would be someone who has been the assistant coach and who has interacted with the players in the past, and especially for a game with Nigeria, which is a few days away, you probably want to look at a coach that knows the players at the current.
So I guess the question I was asking is, looking at the criteria you just laid out and all the need to know the players, as we speak right now, is the reason why the GFA executives are in Germany and they believe Otto Addo ticks these boxes for now.
It comes as obvious, especially given our, you see, we need to look at long term and a short term. In the immediate term, and I think we should focus on this Nigerian game and not, in my view, exert too much energy in who becomes the coach. We need to focus on our game with Nigeria. You know, the passion between Ghana or that comes in matches between Ghana and Nigeria is huge. So our focus is immediately to address this challenge. Now, if eventually we will have to look for a coach which, you know, meets certain criteria for a long time and all that, that is possible. That that's something that we should look at. I mean, but for now, in my view, for now, if Otto Addo agrees to come, especially because of the immediate challenge that we have, I have no problem with that.
That was Dr. Obin speaking on PM Express. He is an executive council member of the Ghana Football Association. That wraps it up for our first part of the sports segment here. I'll be back in the next hour.
And I know you've been waiting for it, but it's here now. Becky's here with the latest in the world of showbiz. Hello, Becky.
Hello to you, Ernest.
I like your outfit.
Oh, thank you.
Gold and black.
Yeah.
Perfect combination.
Oh, thank you so much.
What do you have for us today?
Irene Logan, you know that she is a musician, she's a songwriter as well. You know that she converted to gospel, or, you know, a minister for the gospel. And
she's always been in the church, except that, I mean, she went the other way and now she's back.
Now she's back. So she's been describing, you know, her journey in the gospel industry. She describes it as an amazing one, and an amazing one because Ghanaians have been very supportive of her career.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
I was born to perform signs and wonders in His name.
It's been a long journey, that's all I can say, but God has been good. He's still doing His work in me. I'm nowhere where I want to be. I'm nowhere where He's taking me. The focus is just following His lead, and I've learned to be patient in the process. But everything that I've been through, like I said, I wear my scars as beautiful crowns.
Ever since you started in ministry, how have you seen your music in connection with the gospel fraternity?
Yeah, well, a lot of people have been very supportive, really. The support has been very overwhelming. You know, there's this thing where people say Ghanaians are not supportive. I don't agree at all. Way back, I used to say that, but I stand to be corrected, really. Ghanaians have been extremely supportive. I think once you avail yourself to really doing something genuinely, people will come to support. So it's been amazing, really.
I can see that you're loving it more than the secular.
Well, like I said, I'm walking in my calling, so the glow is coming.
That's a beautiful song,
Very
there,
beautiful
and I'm
song.
very happy for her.
Almost
that is
sounded
going
like
well.
Whitney there.
Yes, and also like CC Winans, one of CC's songs. You know, but it's beautiful. Irene undoubtedly is talented, but this song is good.
Yeah, I think you should do more, Irene, wherever you are. If you're listening, if you're watching,
we love you, and you're doing
more
great.
of this, these songs, and we know that she will go far. Men, the next story is about men.
What have we done?
I understand that you guys don't like apologizing. You don't like to say.
Who is saying
sorry.
that?
Kwabna.
Oh no, I disagree with Kwabna.
Why?
Look, it's the easiest thing we say. I'm telling you, ask the average man. Saying sorry is like second nature.
I know some.
No, because you have to say it just so that there'll be peace, even if you are not at fault sometimes.
David,
if you like, let's run the poll.
David will never say sorry.
Well, he
to
does
anything.
say sorry.
So I will love to believe that.
David, I know you say sorry. Don't worry, I'm here to defend you.
Well, let's listen to Kwabna.
Yeah. So on the 12th of February, I'm going to lead the men.
Okay.
You see, Ghanaian men, you didn't say you see sorry, Papa.
It be true. And you're romantic.
Just a decay. I am first. so I'm going to lead the guys on the 12th of February. We're going to say sorry to all our beautiful queens out there for everything that we've done that hurt you guys.
Okay.
Yes, so that's right. But man, but we are about to say sorry. All right, so you're gonna have it on the
So Kwabna has a show on the 12th.
And
we will be there. If there are outstanding issues we need to clear, we'll clear that.
So that you can.
But definitely, we do say sorry.
Well, he's saying that you guys don't say sorry, so you need to appear on the 12th so that you can, collectively say sorry.
We'll clear the outstanding ones when we come, but definitely we do.
Why
say
are you
sorry.
taking this one personal?
Oh,
because you always. The fact that you say sorry doesn't mean that others.
But do you think that women do say sorry?
I say sorry all the time.
Okay.
I'm not lying on national television.
Okay, I accept
I'm always sorry. I always apologize if I have to apologize.
I hear you, Becky.
Are you sacking me?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying I hear you. That's all.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for bringing us Showbiz. And that's Showbiz for today's Joy News Prime. We have more stories for you. Stay with us. Let's take you now to Europe on our international stories, and COVID-19 and the lifting of restrictions or lack thereof are topical in Europe this week. Despite soaring COVID-19 infections, Denmark has lifted almost all of its restrictions, while other countries such as Germany keep theirs in place and go even further, such as Austria with implements a mandatory vaccine as of this week. Emmanuel Shays with our partners DW joins us for more from Europe on our crossover today. Are we seeing an end of the restrictions in Europe?
Well, we see some countries lifting their restrictions. Denmark, France, the UK, Ireland opted to get rid of most, if not of all, their restrictions in a bid to normalize life again, and that amidst a soaring number of infections in most European countries. But in other places, such as in Germany or in Austria, where those countries stay put with their own stringent measures to fight the pandemic. Starting this week, Austria implements a mandatory vaccine, while here in Germany, most places are only accessible if one is vaccinated and tested or got a booster shot, and there is no talk of removing masks for now. In fact, there are almost as many approaches to fight the COVID-19 pandemic as there are countries here in Europe.
The number of infections is soaring with the Omicron variant. Isn't it too early to get rid of the measures to fight the pandemic?
It's different approaches, different attitudes to deal with the pandemic, and we see that in spite of a soaring number of infections, here in Germany the 7-day incidence rate is skyrocketing at well over 1,200 per 100,000 inhabitants. In France we saw infections peaking at over 500,000 cases a day by the end of January. We simply see very different policies to fight the pandemic, and one of the arguments to ease the restrictions is that the Omicron variant, which is now dominant in Europe, seems to be a milder form than other forms of COVID-19. It seems to be so infectious despite the measures that some governments have simply chosen to loosen the restrictions regardless of the infection figures.
And finally, restrictions, no restrictions, how is that being viewed by the population?
Well, because the Omicron variant no longer seems to be as threatening as a virus as other forms of COVID-19, fewer people and fewer governments are worried about the pandemic than was the case 2 years ago. And here in Germany, while the majority of the population still supports the measures in place, there's also a third of the people who think that those measures are now going too far. And there's also a very vocal but very small minority of the population that takes to the streets every week to show their disapproval of the restrictions and of a possible mandatory vaccine. And some of those protests also do turn violent, while most see the far right tagging along. But amidst all that, the World Health Organization warned that it would be very premature to declare a victory or to stop the fight against COVID-19.
Well, let's see how that pans out. Emmanuel Shays, thank you very much. He's with our partners, the DW in Germany. And that's it for World News. To other stories here on Joy News Prime, the Central East Police Command has arrested the driver of the Toyota Hiace vehicle that ran over and killed a policewoman at Gomwa Dominance in the Central Region. Comfort Freebie is reported to have been hit by a speeding Toyota vehicle at a police snap checkpoint in the wee hours of Wednesday. According to the police, the driver failed to stop when he got to the checkpoint and ran into the deceased, killing her on the spot. Richard Kojonyako has more in the following report.
Husband of the deceased, Francis Yabwa, wailing uncontrollably when the police visited to commiserate with him on the death of his wife. Around 3 a.m. Wednesday, 29-year-old Comfort Freebie, who was on duty at the police checkpoint at Dominancy, is said to have been run over by a speeding vehicle that failed to stop when she signaled him to stop. The wife left home Tuesday evening and told him to wait for him to return before he leaves the house. The husband obeyed and waited, but that wait was far too long. The wife had stayed beyond the normal time she usually comes home. Francis says she married the wife about 5 months ago and thus comes as a heavy blow to him. Someone called me and asked whether I had heard what had happened, and I replied no. The man declined to tell me anything. At that point, I didn't know what to do, and so I decided to call her to tell her if she wouldn't come, then I want to step out. Called several times, but no one picked it. I made the last effort, and someone picked my wife's phone and told me that my wife had gone to the washroom. At that very moment, I also received a call from a female police officer who asked me to send my wife's picture if I had one on my phone. The news has saddened officers with the Gomwa Dominance District Police Command since the barrier they say was established just last week after a series of robbery cases were recorded on the Apam Winneba Kaswa stretch of the highway. Co-tenants of the 29-year-old police constable were in shock as they say Comfort looked bubbly on the eve of her demise. Comfort, they say, is a jolly good fellow and they couldn't have asked for a better co-tenant.
If you knew Bia Kola. I met me a Kazambo. Well, that's a and you'll be an answer and say, oh, feared my buyer, you know, yet here. The
The police administration on Wednesday morning sent a delegation from the National Police Headquarters to commiserate with her husband, visit the scene of the incident, and also visit the Domnasi police station where the deceased was officially stationed until her demise. COP Nathan Kofi Boachi, who led the delegation, announced that the police administration would cater for the funeral cost of the deceased. He stated further that the delegation has been sent to Jinijini, hometown of the deceased, to officially inform them of the death of Comforts. Meanwhile, a team of psychologists have been assigned to psych the husband and the colleague officers of the deceased. The vehicle that was involved in the incident has since been impounded by the police while investigations are underway. Reporting for Joy News, Richard Kwejenyako, Gomwa Dominasi.
In a rare and unusual move, a private developer has constructed a wall in the middle of an asphalted road blocking access to the Regional Coordinating Council, the Residency and the Urban Roads Department office at Danyame in Kumasi. Sources say the developer is laying claim to the piece of land which has served as a link road for many years. Beyond the destruction of the road, the development threatens the security of the president and the vice president, whose apartments sit close to the location. Now, Jima has more in the following report.
Commuters turn immediately after spotting the blockade. A concrete wall is constructed in the middle of an asphalted road.
My father, best 15 years.
I have been using this road for more than 15 years. Even before it was asphalted, and now see, one day the country will be sold to a foreigner without any of us knowing. Many, mostly pupils of State Experimental School who have often used the route, are also affected. One side of the road has completely been blocked by the fence wall, leaving the other side, which is believed to be entrance to the property. So this end of the fence wall is about 10 meters away from the Urban Roads Department, and as you can see, the road itself has been distracted by the construction of this particular fence wall. Also sitting behind the property is the Regional Coordinating Council. It means this particular property we are talking about shares a fence wall with the Regional Coordinating Council, and within the Regional Coordinating Council is the residency for the Regional Minister, Simon Esei-Mensah, and also a reserved space for the Vice President and also the President himself. And according to sources within the Regional Coordinating Council, they find it as a threat to security. Sources say the developer acquired the land in 2005 when some government property within Denyame was offered for sale. Subsequently, the road was asphalted and has been upgraded last year. The Urban Roads Department has admitted knowledge of the construction, but says the private developer has documentation to support claim of ownership. Nanaya Ochima, Kumasi.
A stark reality has been confirmed through data and interviews. At least 9 persons alleged to be engaged in illicit activities, including fraud and galamsey, doled out millions of cedis in support of the electoral bid of politicians in anticipation of juicy contracts. Now, these are the findings of the CDD survey that put the cost of running a good presidential campaign at a minimum of $100 million. That's one the following report.
Researchers engaged residents of Greater Accra, Eastern, Ashanti and Western regions. At least 40 informants were interviewed. Cost of making a parliamentary bid was placed at 4 million cedis, while that of presidential elections was $100 million.
The other part, which was a surprise, we didn't set out to get this data, was trying to estimate the cost to run for president. And at the validation sessions, we found, or we were told, that it will cost about $100 million. And these estimates were given by people who had been part of presidential campaigns, very high up. We didn't set out to find this one, but it came to us. We think further research is needed so that we can itemize the cost to know exactly what goes into it.
9 persons alleged to be engaged in illicit trade are said to have financed the election bid of some candidates.
In terms of what we found, we identified 9 financiers of candidates and political parties funding to them who were engaged, who were allegedly engaged in illicit activities and funneling the money back. And these financiers were engaged in illegal mining, galamsey. Ever wonder why it's so difficult getting this problem solved? Illegal oil distribution, bunkering in the coast, particularly in the oil city.
The political parties are not surprised but want reforms.
Our expenditure as a nation has increased at all levels, from personal to institutions to political parties. So the 4 million and the 100 million, I cannot authoritatively state, but I know that expenditures have run and there's the need to cut it.
I don't know whether I'll be able to actually say with some certainty, because nobody comes to offer funding and tells you that I'm engaged in human sacrifice or anything. You understand? The person may come and offer, and usually that is what they will be doing. It is only when you come to power that somebody will come and say that, well, this person, this business, help us with it and so on. So nobody will come and disclose that I kill human beings or I'm a terrorist, so I'm coming to finance your party. Nobody will accept that type of funding. So
the CDD's Dr. Kojo Asante believes relevant state institutions must act.
Immediately we are trying to constitute a small group with different people with very long history of working in this area to draft a roadmap. What do we have to do and within what time frame, with all the considerations that we can put in it, so that we can have a plan that we can, as civil society, as media, we can push and say, we need to make these reforms quickly.
Only time will tell whether the needed amendments to check campaign financing will be followed through.
There's emerging controversy between some members of the National Democratic Congress and the party's dismissed Deputy General Secretary Kwaku Anyido over who is better positioned to protect and continue the legacy of former President John Evans Atta Mills. Chief Executive of the Atta Mills Institute, Kwaku Anyido, is accusing persons behind the new group of stealing his ideas and corruption. Some eminent members of the NDC, including John Mahama, together with the family of the former president on Tuesday, launched the John Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage, which the founders say is a non-profit, independent, non-partisan organization to champion his relentless quest for peace and a better society. Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Peter Boamo-Tokuno, says the party will only recognize the newly launched John Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage to champion the values of the former president because it transcends an individual.
We are talking about Professor John Evans Atta Mills. He transcends an individual. So clearly, if you see what has been done here, it transcends any individual and any person who wants to, do anything in the name of President Atta Mills. You saw the congregation of great minds, top senior citizens who were here to mark the launch of this heritage. This is something that is going to be around for a very long time and for the next generation. We are immortalizing the principles and the values that President Mills lived for, and that is what we are doing. So no other foundation is in competition with this foundation or this heritage that we have established. We do not recognize any other.
Recognize the coup and
it could even be your foundation. It will not serve the purpose. It could even be your foundation. It will not serve the purpose. This will serve the purpose for what President Mills lived for.
The board chairman of the Memorial Heritage, Alex Sedbefia, has been talking about the objectives of the John Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage.
He brought to bear on the Ghanaian presidency all these unique attributes of his personality. It should therefore come as no surprise that another organization has emerged to continue to advance the principles, values, and ideals this great son of our land stood for. On the 9th anniversary of his passing last year, a group of academics, professionals, colleagues, former appointees, students, and families decided that an organization be created to preserve his heritage and his legacy. The group began to explore and expand on the concept of a Professor Mills heritage. From this group, a planning committee was established to actualize the concept. As a result, the John Evans Mills Memorial Heritage was incorporated on the 14th of October 2021 at the Registrar General's Department as a not-for-profit, non-partisan, independent, charitable company limited by guarantee. It currently has a board of 4 directors, namely Dr. Sherry Aite, Honorable Samuel Atta-Mills, Mr. C.C. Kwenu, and I, Alex Segbefia, as chairman of the board. Nana Oye Bampo Ado is our secretary to the board. An advisory council to the heritage has also been established. It comprises Mr. Kwame Pienim, Mr. James Bebaku Mensah, Mr. John Henry Mate Newman, Professor Agnes Atia Apusika, Dr. Esther Ofe-Abaji, Toby Akpede the 14th, Agbobo Momi Mefia of Sobli State, Mrs. Yvonne Boating, Alhaji Dr. Ahmed Vanderboy, Dr. Kadman Atta-Mills, and Na Al-Hassan Andani. The John Evans Atta-Mills Memorial Heritage is nevertheless a voluntary organization whose programs and activities are carried out entirely by volunteers. It is also funded entirely by volunteers. Indeed, this launch program has been funded by individuals and group volunteers. All who believe in the heritage of John Evans Atta-Mills are therefore welcome to join the John Evans Atta-Mills Memorial Heritage. In pursuance of this, we have developed a program of activities for the heritage to cover a year-long celebration of the 10th anniversary of his death. There will be a series of John Evans Atta-Mills Memorial Lectures, which will cover all the regions, possibly clustered into zones. The highlight of the lecture will be a major lecture to commemorate the 10th anniversary of his death in July, the month in which he died. The activities will also include infrastructure projects, sporting activities, academic scholarships, especially in the areas of law and taxation, will also be arranged.
So how's the former President John Evans Atta-Mills being immortalized? Catch the conversation tonight on PM Express right here on the Journeys channel as we look forward to a conversation with the former Director of Communications for the late Professor Mills, Koku Anido. Make a date with Evans Mensah. This is Journeys Prime with me and Asmina. To other stories now, Promasidor Ghana Limited has presented several of its products worth over 70,000 Ghana cedis to victims of the Apiati explosion at the Dumase resettlement camp at Bogoso in the Western region. According to the company, even though it is in the position to help, they want to be relevant to the state institutions to put in place concrete measures to help prevent such disaster from happening in the future. There's more in the following report.
Victims of the Apiati explosion were relocated to their temporary residence at the Dumase resettlement site. Several institutions and well-wishers have been presenting several items of various forms to the inhabitants. Promasidor Ghana Limited on Tuesday, February 1st, also visited the victims to commiserate with them. They also used the opportunity to present several of their products worth 70,000 Ghana cedis to the victims to help make their stay comfortable. The company presented boxes of cowbell, mixie, onga, yamvita, branded bowls and other kitchen accessories. Head of events and PR for Promasido Ghana Limited, Gideon Kodo, in an interview after the presentation, described the incident as tragic and sympathized with the victims.
A very sad incident that occurred on the 20th of January, which was the explosion that occurred at Apiate. And it's a business that's been working with the community, and we thought it's very important, and also given the kind of food product that we produce, it's important that we make the first move of presenting these items as relief items to the victims of the explosion. Then again, I mean, it's just to state that what we are doing over here is make the presentation which is intended for the camp, whilst we explore what exactly needs to be done to support the fund that has been set up for the resettlement and also dealing with the issue from a national level. So these are items that we have presented, and we're glad the MC, together with the traditional leaders and also some of the community members, have welcomed it.
While pledging that the company will offer continuous support when need be, he asked the relevant institutions to take a cue from the Apiate explosion and work to ensure that such disasters are prevented from happening anywhere in the country.
Let's just establish the fact that this is a very sad time, for the incident that occurred, and the discussion, as we've all heard from different stakeholders, media platforms, is to make sure that as we go on in the future, issues of this nature do not repeat itself, and that's when the issue of regulation comes in. But yes, we are happy we are in a position to support, but we really would have wished nothing like this happened, because there are lives that have been lost. There are victims that have been displaced. I tell you for a fact, there are people who are going to start their life all over again, and that's a very difficult experience one would go through. So yes, we are able to support, which is a good thing, but we are hoping that we don't have incidents of this nature.
Receiving the items, Pristia Honivala Municipal Chief Executive Dr. Isaac Dasmani said the gestures from Promasido Ghana Limited could not have come at any better time.
To express my sincere gratitude to Promasido on behalf of the Nanano and the people of Apiati for this kind of donation. If you look at the items that have been donated by Promasido, in fact, they are quite impressive. And since this incident happened, a lot of people have come here with items and various forms, but they have also shown that they are also there for us. And I in particular am very much excited, given their relationship and the kind of that we have established with them. These items that they've seen here, we are going to make sure that we distribute to the children, the mothers, and then those who actually need it. And I want to assure them that the items that they have donated are going to be used for the intended purpose.
The chiefs and people of Apiate applauded Promasido Ghana Limited for the presentation. For Joy News, in Athalia Kwanza, Apiate.
Now, government has tasked the Minerals Commission to be vigilant in its supervision of mining activities in the country. The Minister for Land and Natural Resources, Samuel Abujinapo, says safety at the mining area is key on the agenda of government following the disaster at Apiate. There's more in the following report by Michael Ashali.
But on Thursday, 27th January, the members of the committee, led by our able sector minister, Honorable Jinapo, paid a courtesy call on His Excellency the President, and we received our first donation from the President, who has personally donated 100,000 Ghana cedis to the Apiate Support Fund. We can't say thank you enough to the President for his exemplary leadership, using the highest standards of integrity and transparency. We disburse these funds for the benefit of the community and the reconstruction of the community, as well as the restoration of livelihoods to the community. We hadn't come to you earlier because we wanted to make sure that all the important things that we need to do have been done. For example, we need bank accounts. We cannot receive your money for you not to know where we're going to place the money.
This is John News Prime with me, Ernest Minu. We have more business stories for you after this break. Don't go away.
Spent an estimated total of 6.8 billion cedis in rice importation from 2017 to 2020 to supplement local production. The increased consumption of rice in the country has necessitated a local initiative to satisfy the demand and reduce cost of rice importation. We have more in this report.
Local rice production in Ghana increased to 950,000 metric tons in 2020, with an annual increase of 60 kg per person rice consumption. However, current rice production meets less than 40% of consumption requirements in Ghana. The Bekwai municipality, like many rice farming communities, suffers lower and nutritious rice yields. Emmanuel Mensah is Director of Agriculture at Bekwai.
Came out with the issue of noxious weed, different types of weed that affect the cropping of rice. So we reported the issue to research, and they came up with a solution. But before they can take any decision, they have to establish a demonstration so that the farmers themselves will take part in the demonstration. Whatever activity goes on, they will be part. So they came to establish this demonstration to curtail the issue of the different types of weed that affects the crop.
Rice demand in the country is rapidly growing at 5% per annum, which would require commensurable production. Some rice farmers at Asanso, a suburb of Bekwai, share their farming experience prior to their exposure to the new technologies. Amina Mohammed and Issa Numfam have been working as rice farmers for close to 10 years now.
The new technologies are way better than our traditional style of farming.
I'm grateful to the government for bringing this rice production initiative to this area. This has really helped us. I've been working on this rice farm for years, but there was no improvement.
To reduce Ghana's cost of importing rice, researchers of the Crops Research Institute introduced the farmers to new rice farming technologies and improved rice varieties. William Leila Bikota is the lead technical advisor at CRI-CSIR.
The main problem they face is how their lands are prepared. Their lands are prepared poorly. They do not make bonds around their farms. And so water control on their fields are difficult. We taught them how to prepare bonds around their fields. We showed them how to prepare canals to let in water into their fields and out when the water is too much. We also showed them how to prepare nursery and how to transplant. We told them that transplanting one seedling per hill is the best.
It is the hope of these farmers and crop researchers to support government's initiative of ending the importation of rice by 2024. However, they are calling on government to provide enhanced technological tools to produce more rice for Ghana. From Asante, Bekwai, Emmanuel Brightsweke reporting.
Now, an agro-processing company, Sun City Farms, is positioning itself to create a robust local economy in the Afajeto South District of the Volta region. We have more in this report.
The management of Sun City Farms has acquired farmlands at Ver Agbodome, where various crops are being cultivated for production, with priority on producing organic crops. Multi-purpose factories are being constructed to process produce from the farm fields into finished products for export. 8 structures are being erected here to house different food processing plants. A unit would contain about 4,000 tons capacity warehouse, a processing unit, offices, and a staff apartment. They would also construct a parking unit, a quality control unit, a multi-purpose sport complex, and a health facility for use by the staff in the enclave. The Volta Regional Minister, Dr. Archibald Lecha, after touring the facility, was enthused with the level of work done and the vision of the managers of the farm.
And this is a factory that will process the cashew, a factory that will process the pepper and the ginger and other things. And we've a lot of equipment have arrived already. They are being installed, and there are even produce ready to be processed. Now there's a dryer to do that. So this dryer is going to dry onions, pepper, and ginger.
Yes.
Yes, and ginger. So they are going to produce pepper powder, chili powder, ginger powder, and then process the cashew. They've been producing the raw materials already. So they have about 800 acres of cashew farm that they think that the processing will begin from their own produce. Then later, through the assembly, they will have outgrowers. It is very impressive, and we are happy that such a facility has been located in the Afajota district of our country, which is known for agribusiness and tourism. We are excited about what we have seen.
Fred Kwame Asari, Joy News.
Now, as part of reviving the hospitality industry post-COVID-19, GIZ Ghana is set to train 120 young people through its Hospitality Learning and Job Creation Hub. According to Head of Business and Investment, Anne-Marie Castile-Langfield, the move is to provide practical, customer-centric and coaching services that will create job opportunities. We have more in this report.
The hub is jointly implemented by GIZ Ghana and the Meltwater Entrepreneurial School of Technology. The project will provide a tailor-made training for upcoming frontline hospitality personnel. This is intended to increase job creation opportunities. Here is the Head of Business and Investment for GIZ Ghana, Anna-Marie Castile-Langfield.
The main breaking point when it comes to investment in Ghana is the lack of training in specific sectors. So when we discuss with hospitality players, industry players, we realize that there is a common ground. We have European companies, Ghanaian companies, hoteliers, restaurants, who would like to grow, to have more investment in Ghana. But they all say what we need is well-trained employees.
At the launch, Portfolio Advisor for the Meltwater Entrepreneurial School of Technology explained the need to invest in such initiatives.
I think the cost of running a business in Ghana is particularly lower than the cost of running a business in Nigeria. And given Nigeria's, I think, bursting ecosystem, and I think being in it often probably will not give the right sense of direction for Twitter as a company. So being outside it and watching what Nigeria is able to do on the Twitter platform while observing it from Ghana, I think personally is better. And I definitely do not feel that it will undermine Twitter's establishment in an office in Accra.
The project will provide direct jobs to about 90 upcoming hospitality personnel.
That'll be it for business, but we'll leave you with international business news, after which we have sports. Please stay with us.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the second part of the sports segment with me, Rick Wampofo, Chief Executive Officer of Asante Kotoko Nanayawa Amponsa, has attributed the club's several bumper sponsorship deals to an impressive business plan. The Porcupine Warriors have secured big money sponsorships from Hisense, NLA, Star Assurance, Goyle, ZPay, among others. Speaking during his visit to former Kotoko CEO Herbert Mensah, Nanayawa Amponsa believes the club's business plan is impressive.
Football is big business, as he said. You know, the numbers he was putting out there is no joke. And so until we understand that football is business and we treat it as a business, we are going to struggle. I always say that you cannot walk into a company that is being run with a proper business plan, ask them to give you money, and then you don't have a business plan. You walk into ZPay, Hisense, and you say, give me 1 million cedis, 2 million cedis, 3 million cedis to go run Kotoko. And then you don't have a business plan to run Kotoko. Nobody's going to do that. You need to be able to show a business plan, show them how their plan fits into yours and vice versa, and how both can grow together. Many have said it's COVID time, how is Nanayawa and his management being able to bring in revenue. Just as it's COVID and Kotoko needs help, a lot of companies also need help. So there has to be that symbiotic relationship where we benefit from each other. So we need to have a plan where we say, come in and this is how we'll help you with our numbers, this is how we'll help you with our image, this is how we help you build your mileage, and then you also help us financially. Then we benefit from each other. So it's not been easy. I always tell Senior, how did you do it? As you mentioned, Kotoko is not a football club. It's an institution. It's an institution, it's a cultural institution, social one, a religious one, an educational institution, a political institution. I mean, when I once mentioned that Kotoko is bigger than a certain institution, people didn't understand. But if you delve deep into the fabric of Kotoko, then you understand what Asante Kotoko stands for.
Well, before we do our last story on rugby, just an update from the Africa Cup of Nations, and Senegal have now all but secured a spot in the final after Sadio Mane extended their lead to 3-1 against Burkina Faso. We'll be bringing you highlights much later on our subsequent bulletins. But before we go, the national rugby team will secure a place in the Rugby Sevens World Cup for the first time if they finish first in the final shootout in April this year. The Eagles have intensified preparations for the big task ahead, and Joy Sports' Asari Bidiako was there and put together this report.
After emerging champions in the 7th pre-World Cup qualifier that came off in Kumasi in November last year, the Eagles are focused on the bigger task ahead, securing qualification to a historic appearance at the Rugby 7th World Cup. The team is leaving no stone unturned ahead of the tournament, which will be staged in Tunisia and Uganda in April this year. Head coach of the national rugby team, Lavmo Kuzurera, has been speaking to Joy Sports.
We're just coming from a festive season break, and as you can see, the guys are back into it. We've started off slow, but with a lot of cardio work. Guys, some have been sitting, were getting injuries, so they are coming back from the tournament. So slowly, we are getting back into it. So we are working on their fitness. At the same time, we are working on some certain skills. As you can see behind, we are already 2-3 steps ahead. We are trying to work in our transitions from lineouts, from scrums, and basically also more of what you call constraint resistance training, which focuses more on training and playing under pressure most of the time.
A key member of the female rugby team, Paulina Mensah, is happy with the training sessions so far.
We are expecting, we are going to do all our best, because the tournament is not easy, because the countries that we are going to meet, we need to train extra, but they should expect the best from us. Training is going on well for us, because the tournament is just around the corner and we don't have time. January is just out, so we have less than 2 months to train to go for the tournament.
Yaya Lukman, a member of the male rugby team, has called for corporate and government support and has thanked Ghana Rugby President Herbert Mensah for his financial assistance.
My main message will go to the NSA and the sports ministries. This thing we are doing here is all about money. It's all about money, and I can say Mr. Herbert Mensah have been at our back since, and like upon all the problems going on, he's still there, and see what he did to for us to win at Kumasi in the previous tournament. So, and he's still pushing. He's still pushing. So we need support from government, seriously, because this is a World Cup qualified. It's not even the pre-qualified. We've done that already with nothing. But now we need support. We really need support from the government.
Well, that's how we wrap up the sports segment here. My name is Oreko Ampofu.
That's our show for tonight. Many thanks for your company. Please log on to myjoyonline.com. You find more stories there. I'm Ernest Mina.